Go live. All right.
Going live.
Our conversation.
This is our last Art Break live session. Woohoo! And we have some amazing speakers. I'm really excited about this conversation that's going to unfold once we. Oh shoot! Darn it! Gotta go back. Nope. I put it on my timeline, so I gotta.
Yeah.
Get out of that. Okay. Here we go. I know it's been a beautiful day, everybody in the universe that's been watching us, but like Art Break Day, the physical one, by the end of it, you're kind of exhausted.
Yeah. Definitely feeling it. But
yeah, I mean, I think it's so powerful. I think just connecting with people and producing this event, it's been a magical thing. All right.
Yeah, we doing it?
Almost. Taking its time. Okay. Okay, we're gonna go live.
Okay.
All right. We're going live. Let us know when we're there tomorrow.
Oh, we are live. Hello, everybody.
Okay, let's admit Sharon's coming in.
Okay.
Ray's coming in. Eileen's coming in. And hey, I have Christine. Hello.
Oh.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey, Sharon. Hey, Ray. Hey, Lisa. I think, I'm missing. Christine's back. I love this. We have 3 people that were in our last Art Break. Hi, Eileen.
Hello.
How are you?
There you are, Lisa.
Yeah, hey, how are you? How's everybody? So, we're going to start off this conversation. Introduce yourself a bit, and then in one word, what does art mean to you? So, Sharon, you are up.
I'm Sharon, and I'm in Amarillo, Texas. I'm an art, music, and yoga teacher. I'm a parent of 3 kiddos. I'm very busy. Art to me means curiosity.
I love it. Ray.
Hi, I'm Ray Luskin. I'm outside of Chicago, Illinois, in the northern suburbs. I'm a grandparent of 5, wow. And I'm an artist and an author. So I paint and collage as well as write several books. And I call myself the creative mindfulness mentor. Oh. Because art to me is about, and creativity in itself is about, there's 4 parts to it as far as I'm concerned: building self-esteem, resilience, healing, and social change.
All right, rock on.
I like it.
Lisa Palmer.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Lisa Fulmer. I am in Concord, California. We're just a little bit north of San Francisco. And I'm a board member for the Concord Art Association. I am an arts advocate in my community, and my word would be bliss.
Bliss. Oh, I like that. Christine.
Hi, I'm Christine Schmoeckel. I live in Sacramento. And let's see, what else do you want to know? I forgot.
How about you? Who are you? And then what do you feel that art means to you in one word?
Okay. For me, I'm newly retired. Newly meaning it's actually been 2 years, but I've spent a year or more caring for my folks. And now with COVID, I've discovered life. So I feel like I just finally retired, in April.
Yeah. Wow.
And yeah. So it's finding a new life, and it's been that's been a gift, and it's also been a gift to discover that they don't need me as much as I think they need me. They're doing just fine. Blah blah blah. So art is I'll use the word refuge. I'll do anything and everything, and yeah, it's refuge.
Beautiful. Thank you, Eileen. Hey.
Well, nice to meet the rest of you. I'm also in California. Hi, Lisa.
Hey, can you turn up your volume a little bit? It's hard to hear.
Let's see. Oh, it is all the way up. I'll just, you know what? I don't like doing this, but I will. Just a minute.
Yeah.
I'm going to plug in here. Second. better?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
All right. All right. Yes. I know Lisa from an Arts Medicine Day years ago, collaborating in arts events. I'm in Mill Valley, California, which is just north of San Francisco. The air is clearing, smells a little bit foggy here. And I am a psychologist and a dance therapist. Long time I've been a dance therapist. I was in the first class in 1970.
Oh, I think we lost Eileen.
No, I'm here.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
All right. Shall I repeat something or?
Yeah, or no, yes, no. Whatever you like.
I said I'm a psychologist and a dance therapist. Was in the first class at Hunter, got my master's in 1973. So I'm really one of the old timers in dance therapy. So the one word, Lisa, when you asked for the one word, I said culture, because one thing I'm missing in the pandemic is all the little neighborhood stores and neighbors. And art is everywhere. It's walking down the street. It's the feeling of walking to your car. It's movement. It's the signs on the windows that are changing. So it's really the whole, that the world is alive.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And how about you, Lauren?
I'm Lauren. I'm one of the co-founding directors of Art is Moving. I currently live in a small town called Corvallis, Oregon with my 3 boys, my husband, and my 2 dogs. I spend a good majority of my time as a baker. I own a bake shop out of my home, but I also spend another majority of my time with Art is Moving to get folks to take an art break, because I know that art is that magical tool that helps you communicate not only with yourself, but with the surrounding world. And art to me right now, art to me means exhilaration, because this day has really excited me about the potential of the future for Art is Moving and new forms and new ways we can connect with people through the act of making art.
I love it. It's like, what is the future of art? Maybe that's a question we're going to talk about.
What about you, Lisa?
Yeah, I'm Lisa. I'm the co-founding director of Art is Moving. I'm also at something called the Harmonia Institute, which is a holistic practice for healing in art. My one word, I think, is really transformation. I think art at its core is transformative. So let's begin our conversation. We're going to want it to be like organic, so just, kind of like flow within it. And then Lauren, do you want me to ask that question that I kind of asked before?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
So I thought of it like we feel, I think we all on this panel feel that everybody's an artist, right? We're all artists, we're all creators. So in the now, what is the role of an artist in society? Let's just kind of hop on that. What is the role of, if we're all artists, what is the role of an artist in society? So jump in.
All right, I'll jump in.
All right.
Yeah. I think, our role is connection. It is connecting all of us to tell us there is one humanity, and that we are a human planet. It's not them and, us. We have to learn to agree to disagree. I think that. And connecting with family in unique new ways. Through COVID, I had to learn to use, I was sick in the beginning in March for like 2 months. And so I was, away from my family and all that. I live alone, no furry animals or anything. And so I got each of my kids, one lives in California, one lives here, this Echo show by Amazon. And I would do art parties with my grandchildren. So, we're talking 8 down to 1.5. So we were talking little ones, but we would finger paint together. Watching my granddaughter, who's, 1.5 now almost, actually finger paint for the first time was fabulous.
Yeah.
And I think the other piece of it is we got up and danced. We had dance parties, so art is a much broader definition. I always say it's how we live our lives. It's how we parent, how we garden. It's not about being a fine artist. And that's where the people get hung up on, oh my God, I can't draw. I can't do this. And now, because my kids in California are not in school, I'm teaching art to them once a week, via Zoom. So this is a whole new way of looking at our role as society in that. And then one more piece for me personally, you know, it's expanded my talking about art and other modalities. I've been taking a theater class from Florida Theater Studio. And it's been 8 weeks. We just finished it. And it was all about bringing awareness to white privileged people, you know, about what is going on in the BIPOC community. So it's, you know, Indigenous, Black, you know, all that stuff, Latinx and stuff, how things are changing. So it opened up that ability and those connections for me that I was truly unaware of. So we would read 2 plays a week, basically. One would be written by a white author talking about a Black experience, and then the Black experience talking about a Black experience. And it was really fascinating. And you know, you question, where does art go? Because, you know, so many of the plays now that have been all the anger, and I sort of look at like what's going on in the world, like we picked the pimple and it all exploded, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, what's next for all of us as artists? You know, I had an idea for an art thing, but it was still an angry piece. And I don't want to be angry anymore. I want to be inspiring. I want to be motivating, empowering, and connective. So
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eileen.
Hey, that's phenomenal. Thanks so much. So creative. And I want to jump on the part especially about during this time of COVID.
Yeah.
Because challenges. And answer the thing that I'm been struggling with, actually. I call it how to bring embodiment to an increasingly disembodied world. So many people I hear, you know, therapists, verbal therapists, all kinds of people are talking about zoomed out. And I really got interested in what is this phenomenon of staring at a screen. You know, many of us are on for 8 hours a day, you know, aching eyes, aching head, compressed spine. So what we've been doing is trying to develop actually antidotes to that online. It was a little bit of a paradox how to use online to undo what online does to us. But let me say, Ray, that I've got 3 grandchildren now, and communicate much more with them on Zoom, sometimes artwork. But, you know, as I hear about online education and, you know, not going back to classes and more in a Zoom world, people, therapists not going back to using their offices, so people relying on Zoom, and I'm surrendering to this also. I just got a new computer with better capabilities. So when I think about a disembodied world, because, you know, what I used to do is, especially during COVID, made sure I got not only walks, but fresh air and nature. And moved. But many people are saying they can't afford movement breaks, or, you know, putting little technical reminders into the technology to stop the technology to get up and stretch. So so I've been working with the American Psychological Association, an amazing group of people from the trauma division, to create, and Lisa's on our committee, to really create, and we're on a committee that focuses on, and, you know, please feel free to contact Lisa if you have any ideas. Many of the committees are focusing on sort of verbal, text-based interventions with trauma. And as many of us artists know, this is a bit of a commercial here. Trauma is in the body, or it can't be expressed verbally. It can be expressed in symbol, expressed non-verbally. So we're trying to create a whole resource database to curate webinars and good suggestions that get out there. There's all kinds of organizations that we're discovering, arts medicine organizations that are already reaching first-line responders, doctors, nurses in hospitals, everyday people. So that's kind of what I'm focused on, is bringing creativity and embodiment to this new world we're facing of Zoom and disembodiment, and also not moving because of COVID. We're in little rooms and we're numb and we don't move, and then how do we bring ourselves alive again? So,
wow, that's powerful.
I think we're just at the beginning of really understanding what this is and how to address it.
Yeah, Lauren and I were talking beforehand, and we were talking about the trauma, and that we don't even have words for the trauma, and that's where art comes in. We don't even have a language for the emotions that we're experiencing and the massive grief that's going on right now.
Yes.
But to highlight, I love what Ray said. I think as for all artists, we need to lead an inspired life. you know, and I think that's the goal of art, and that's the goal of the now. And then Eileen, I love that to embody your creativity. That's what it's really about. Lauren and I always talk about, like, how come when you sit around with a group of people and create art together, people start talking. There's no, you know, barriers dissolve. And, you know, we're like, this is why we did Art Break Day, because we're like, this is like magic. It's like pure magic. Anyway.
Well, even when you're talking about that, talking to my granddaughter, my daughter has said, she tells you things when you're doing art with her that I've never heard.
Yeah.
And even at a distance, and that Zoom idea, you know, it's still like and then now she has one little girl, they don't go to school together, but they get on and do art dates themselves, and just, you know, they're 5, but they're just chatting away, you know, and it is interesting. One of the things I want to address about, you know, Irene, something that I believe in wholeheartedly for embodiment piece, because I was sexually abused as a kid, and I went through talk therapy for a very long time, but my greatest healing tool was art. I started using, one day I just picked up crayons and I just started to scribble and doodle, and I mean, just the pain just poured out of me, and it was, you know, it could have been 10 minutes. I did it for weeks. And people came up to me and said, oh my God, what'd you do? Did you change your hair? You look so happy. Did you lose weight? But it was a way for me to get out those difficult emotions I had no words for. And I did it in an abstract way. I didn't have to be the artist at that moment. Obviously, later on, I actually painted the experiences in a representational way. But I think we don't give credit to scribbles enough, that the idea of that is art, and it's therapy, and it is a way to let go. So,
yeah.
Beautiful.
So Lisa, you look like you have something to say. Go for it.
Yeah.
In the same vein, I think as artists, our role, everybody's role, is as communicators.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what art does, is it communicates. And whether you feel the confidence or the inner strength to call yourself an artist or not, all creativity is good creativity. And to your point a minute ago, Ray, the fact that your grandkids talk to you when they're making art and they don't talk to their mom. There is, I mean, that's all about arts and education, right? I mean, creativity stimulates all kinds of parts of the brain that function better when you stimulate creativity. And the art, you know, when you're making art, you can be better at math, you can be better at all these other things, even communication skills. But whether it's the simplest thing, if it's visual or performing arts, whether you're just communicating something really easy and beautiful and pretty and inspiring, or whether you're communicating pain, or you're communicating politics or frustrations or whatever it is, and you're communicating not only with yourself kind of internally, but yeah, then you're communicating with the viewers of your work, however they're seeing your work. And there are emotions that you can evoke through what you create and through what you do. And to your point, I always harp on don't fret about the destination, enjoy the journey, you know, and don't worry about a perfect result of this, you know, piece working on whatever it is. Just enjoy the process of getting there, of doing it, of trying. And if the end result is crap, so what? Try it again and mix it up a little bit. And it's the process that's so enjoyable. And that's what we as artists kind of know intrinsically. And other people gradually, that's my greatest joy, is to get somebody to kind of let go and not worry about, I can't do this, that you get in your own way with things. And I can't do that. I can't draw a stick figure. I can't. And it's like, that's not what this is about. Just here, do this. Here, do this. And just flow it. And people get really like, wow, like, look what I did.
Yeah.
And that's when it, you know, the bells go off for me.
yeah.
Beautiful. How about Sharon or Christine? Any?
Yeah. To kind of, I don't know, follow everything that has already been said, especially like with, you know, art versus just like talking to process things. I feel like our role is to help investigate different viewpoints, because sometimes with talking can be very linear, very limiting, and I feel art lends a non-linear approach to kind of open up our thinking a little bit. You know, allows for different viewpoints and challenging assumptions, and we can get past like the familiar superficial solutions. Like I don't know if you've seen like the 9-dot exercise where can you use 4 lines to like, you know, at some point you're able to be like, oh, I can get out of the box to connect all these dots. And so
Sharon, talk about that a little more.
Yes. There's a website, I don't remember, it's on a website somewhere, but you have 9 dots on a page.
Okay.
And you can only use 4 lines to connect them all. And so, you know, you tend to do the same thing over and over and over until you realize, oh, if you get out of the box and start moving around on the outside, you can connect all these things together. And so, you know, realizing that if we can release our fear of, you know, what's wrong, or there's no single one right answer, you know, we can get new perspectives. We can have some freedom to explore. And even if it doesn't work, we've seen all these, you know, we've explored all these different, you know, ways of, you know, coloring or exploring line, and, you know, we have some interesting material to work with, even if it wasn't the actual solution. So I feel like that's something art gives us, is that ability to look at these different ways of looking at things.
Yeah.
What about you, Christine? Christine, do you have anything you want to add?
Well, for me, my art prayer is, God, I'll take care of the quantity, you take care of the quality. So, you know, just keep moving, just keep doing whatever I'm doing. And I keep remembering back, I went to some community art gallery in Walnut Creek. Somebody's from Concord in here. And there was a kids show, and there were self-portraits. And they actually were for sale. And so the kids named the price. And there was one young man who put on his, it was like, name it, you know, $1.5 million is thing. And if it were up to me, if I had that kind of money, I would have paid the kid. I mean, that he had that kind of confidence. So for me, and that just reminds me of being able to express yourself makes you whole, and brings in all of the pieces, confidence, whatever else, or whatever it might be for each of us. And so for me, it makes me whole. And you know, people, as we know, they all, I'm not an artist, I don't do art, but they don't. Look at your body, look at that brooch you've got on your blah blah or whatever. I mean, there's like, people don't see that they are art walking, you know, or just in the way they speak.
I find that really interesting, Christine. So my son just joined us for my son joined us. He's 7 years old. He joined us for the last Take an Art Break live session. And literally every single artwork he's ever created, it has the same title. It's my masterpiece. He calls every single work that he's created my masterpiece, because he's 7 and he's got confidence up the yin yang. What is going to happen to him in about 5 years that's going to make his confidence go from here and just go? I'm hoping that I can basically not make that happen, but it seems to happen where you go through that section of life where you say to yourself, well, I can't draw, I can't paint, I can't photograph, I can't sculpt, I can't act, I can't dance. I mean, just name it. It's just, I can't. How do we fight that? Like, I feel like that's my job as an artist. My job as an artist is to be proactive and basically fight that push towards not believing that you can. Like, and how do I do that?
I have found actually that social media has been, while there's the good, the bad, and the ugly about social media, and I have found that that's people, even teenagers and younger kids, you know, with parental permission and all that stuff, you have to find your tribe, and you're not always going to find your tribe in your neighborhood or in your school or in your family. And so I see, because I work in the industry and I'm on Instagram all the time for a couple of clients, and my job is to be looking for art content using certain techniques and certain processes or whatever. And I'm watching these young people create and develop their tribe. They find other young people like themselves, and I see how they interact together, and it's all very safe. I know that parents, you know, sometimes have some fears around that, and I get it.
Lisa, are you talking a little older though, the 12, 13, 14-year-olds?
I'm talking young teenagers.
Okay.
From, like, I would say probably 13 on up to 19.
Okay.
They're doing it in a way that helps them find other people just like them, that have the confidence, that started young, that you know, don't necessarily have the skills or the classical training for whatever it is they're doing, but they're doing it, and they're inspired, and they're supporting each other, and they're building each other up. And we do that, all of us, as we, you know, in every stage of life, we find our tribe and we support each other in whatever it is, right? But I have seen a lot of that on social media, because it is hard to find. It's hard for teenagers to find their tribe when they have special interests. Those special interests just fall away, you know, with social peer pressure and all of that stuff. Right. So I think it's, I remember my parents worked really hard back in the 70s to introduce me to as many hobbies and classes as possible, because you know, they wanted to keep me out of trouble, right? So even though all I wanted to do was socialize and get into trouble, I was in ballet, I was in horseback riding, I was in archery, I was in, you know, piano, and now I can, like, that really started my artistic drive though, right? You know, but I didn't find my tribe exactly in those places, but it allowed me to, you know, I found people, other kids that were, you know, that were not in my neighborhood, that were not in my school. You know, so social media amplifies that and allows you to do that without having to schlep your kid across town to some other class or whatever.
That's the benefit. Yeah, there's a study that NASA did, and they tested, I think the kids were 5 years old, maybe a little younger, and they said that 98% were creative geniuses, if you know that study.
I know.
33%. So it's like, you know, alluding to Lauren's point, like, how do you get people to become a creative genius again? And Eileen, you have your hand up.
Well, I was going to say, as a therapist, that's kind of what we do, is we work with the damage that's been done, speaking to Lauren's point. I mean, we see people who are so unable to express themselves, so fearful, so numb, really. And one of the things we do, but this is, you know, what I'm learning is, can this be done on Zoom? I'm just experimenting. Right. Let's say in a dance therapy group, we always incorporate, nobody's movement is to be rejected. So we what's called picking up cues. We're always weaving together different people's movement, making a kind of a tapestry together. And we've done that with large mural projects too, where everybody's scribbles are part of the whole thing. So without actually focusing on any one person, the message is really everybody's making a contribution. And the leader, in a very subtle way, just keeps incorporating all the bits and pieces and making a whole out of it, so that we all feel the feeling of being seen, recognized, included, and validated, without necessarily talking about it or making anyone feel one way or another about it.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I also think, you know, we're already starting to talk about when they're older, but it's how do we keep them in that space right now? You said, Lauren, he's 7 right now, or 9?
Yeah.
Yeah, 7. You know, and I recognize that age in my grandchildren. And it's sort of like, how do we keep the discussion saying, let's not compare to each other? You know, let's not judge. Let's not look at their work. It's all about yours. I did this mandala workshop for my 2 little ones today, who are 8.5 and 6.5. And the 8.5 had a whole lot more confidence. 6.5 is going like this the whole time. And looking at her sister. I said, don't look at your sisters. Look only at your work. And every artist and every piece looks different. This is only a starting point. It's allowing you to be creative. And I think those are the messages, and giving them permission to dream instead of saying, you know, sit down, stop daydreaming, because daydreaming is part of this whole imagination and creativity. And I think in the schools, especially now in COVID, it's going to be harder because there is no time for that. It's like, you got to get this done. You got to sit at the computer. So how do we create those moments for imagination and throughout the day, take those moments, like Eileen was talking about in the beginning, what do we do? How do we create those pauses for everybody? Whether, even if it's just taking a picture out your window, look outside your window, stand there for a minute. What do you see? How many shades of green can you count? What are the leaves? Those kind of things. I know I did that when I was sick. I sat on my balcony, wrapped up in a coat, my winter coat and blanket. And every day I'd sit on my balcony and just take pictures, on my camera, just because that focused me totally in the present. And I think that's it. We need to be present to what's going on.
So my question is, because we had this, do you want to talk, Christine? Go for it.
Well, just to tag on to that, one of the things that was very helpful for me is I was in a group where we did all our art in silence. And I don't know how this would work for your son, but it does help to have others. And we would work in silence over a long period of time. So 2-hour sessions, everybody's doing their art quietly, and then you come back the next week and you still don't talk about your project. And so what morphs out of that is, me, I'm looking at so-and-so's piece over there and I have judgments, that's more, beautiful than mine, or, or whatever story I've put to their project.
Yeah.
And we don't share until the project or the time is up. So, name your weeks or whatever. So many sessions have gone by, and instead of talking about the technical ability or whatever, you talk about the story. And in what we all learned, what I learned, about through it, is that piece that I may have thought either, over there was ugly, was like this amazing story that made it beautiful. And it's the same thing when you go into an art gallery and they tell you, like, I look at this thing and it's just like all blue, like, what the hell? And then they tell you the story behind it, right? So it changes it from the technique and comparing to this is my story, and what that little squiggle means to me or not, or, without the feedback of people saying, even for me, I found even people telling me that my piece was beautiful at the time, like whisper, like, that looks really great. I'm like, well, shit, this is cathartic. I want it to be ugly. And now you've told me it's pretty. Now I got to work some more. It's that. So anyway, I don't know how that would translate, but having another and having to experience that compare in my own world without acting on it, has been very, very helpful. So, and yeah, I'm still jealous of some people.
Christine? Christine, I just want to comment on the word ugly and beautiful.
Yeah.
Because, there was one of the very earliest dance therapists in 1920. I remember a quote from her. She was working with very disorganized patients in a psychiatric hospital, and people were saying, how can you tolerate all those awful emotions, ugly emotions? And she said, I find every expression beautiful. Right. And that breaks down this dichotomy of pretty and ugly and beautiful. And so I was thinking, I just received it was very interesting, a video of like street people doing, excuse me, let me just turn this up, doing it was a very angry dance. And it was on the streets, and it was, not set up by anybody, not choreographed, spontaneous neighborhood expression of anger, really. But it was very, almost violent dancing. And somebody wrote me and said, is this just, when you depict anger, isn't this just catharsis? Isn't it just increasing the anger? And there are some studies by the Dalai Lama and so forth about, you don't want to just amplify the anger because it just gets more anger out there. And we can actually just learn to observe it rather than act on it. And that's an old psychoanalytic conversation about, is acting out just amplifying the violence and the anger in the world, or expressing it part of a pathway to peace, or working it through, or something like that? And what does it mean to, can you get to the other side of an angry expression? But I think the first step in there, again, back to Christine's point, is finding it beautiful. Because as soon as you come with a judgment that it's scary or violent or has to be controlled, you're already setting up an opposition. So it's not easy for those of us. I have to look at my own reactions. You know, it's like, oh, that's scary, or to something, whether it's art or movement that you're seeing, and then somehow join with it, find a way to open to it. And then somehow, there's the transformation, Lisa, begin to bring it down to earth, begin to calm it down together as a dialogue. So that's where the therapeutic aspect comes in. So it's not just kind of raw, just out there, because we've certainly got enough raw anger circulating around us all the time. You know, how do we become not part of the problem, part of the solution in terms of expressing and transforming all this anger we're seeing, or ugly things we're seeing, difficult.
Right.
Well, it's interesting you're talking about that, because in this theater class that I was taking, there were several plays where they actually, instead of just being on stage, the last act was encouraging participants from the audience to come in, to have a dialogue on stage. Very uncomfortable reading it. I can't even imagine being in the audience of some of these plays, but they're calling it the fourth wall. They took down the fourth wall. So there are people who are trying to play with that in so many ways. And
exactly.
This comes back to the idea too about us witnessing and being witnessed. You know, what does that look like for all of us? And is it comfortable, uncomfortable, you know, and all of those pieces. But, and then you think about, you know, the 12-step programs, you know, being witnessed is one of the most healing tools that they offer. It's transformational. You know, you share your, you know, everything you've ever done wrong, you know, and it's like your 4th step. So I think that we as artists are always have to be cognizant of what are people witnessing when they see our work, as well as what are we presenting.
That's
or just to add on, Ray, because I was thinking about you talking about making your art alone when you were in your, you haven't talked about, but for sure you talked about doing mindfulness, the inner witness. So it's very different kind of doing art with some consciousness, with some ability to witness yourself, which already makes it safer, externalizes it, versus being overwhelmed by it, which is the trauma, being overwhelmed by an emotion and not able to kind of externalize it.
Yeah, Lisa, you had something?
Oh, just there's this, to the person who doesn't have the opportunity to become involved in the arts in some way, whether it's through a class or through an organization or through their family. I remember some events that we had done where we were talking to people who, you know, what does art mean to you? And it's not a big theme at all in many people's minds. It is simply, oh, it's what my kid draws on paper. It's what's hanging on my fridge. I mean, it's a very visual drawing is what art means to them. It's not anything deeper than that. And when you actually start talking to people about this sort of misconception that's out there, especially in the visual arts community. I'm more in that community I'm more versed there than I am in the performing arts community. But in the visual arts community, there's this perception that, you know, the fine art gallery is the end game for anybody who's painting or creating or sculpting or whatever. And there's this wall, there's this judge and jury, there's this price point, there's this, you know, sort of this, not really a stigma, but elitism that is sort of placed on it. And even in the communities that have galleries, I think, Christine, maybe that Walnut Creek Gallery might have been Valley Art Gallery is one of the ones here in Walnut Creek. And even then, you know, there's this competition, there's jurying to get the best of the best in the gallery. And we have found in the organization I work with and just in my own personal life that the more you allow people to be seen, right? Like you were saying, there's so much amazing pride and glamour and glory to be able to say that your work is hanging over here in this place, or it's on this website, or you got 15 likes on Facebook or whatever that little metric is that kind of helps you feel seen and validated, even if no matter what your skill level is, no matter what your story behind the piece is. And that's so important for people. That's so important. It's so intrinsic to our self-worth, to our self-esteem, to have those experiences. And I think that's what will build, you know, from children through youth, through adulthood. That's what builds us up, is to find those opportunities and find those organizations that really support that, and to build that yourself for your community. Build those opportunities for everybody to participate, like has been said earlier today, so that people feel, you know, you break down that perception that is, I think it's just a bunch of malarkey. You know, the whole fine art world is a whole other subject.
Big subject. My question is, so it's Art Break Day. We're worldwide. How do we communicate? I mean, obviously we're all artists and into the art. How do you communicate to that person who might be traumatized but they can't create? Or how can we get them to take the leap and to grab a pen and scribble?
Right. I'm gonna put it just in a little bit different way because of the conversation I'm hearing around here. I feel like people do things in their lives that they know are good for them, even if they don't want to do them. So I eat greens because they're good for me. Even though they may not be what I want for dinner when I really want French fries. Me taking an art break is that. Taking an art break is your greens for your emotional stability, your mental health. And so how do we communicate that to people who look at art as strictly their answer to what does art mean to you is a drawing on the refrigerator? How do we break down that wall, let's say? Go ahead, Eileen.
Yes, and then Ray. Can I just suggest a little movement break?
Oh yeah, let's do a movement.
Well, so we're all sitting here, and you know, we're sitting in a chair, right? Probably, and we've probably been sitting like I have in the same chair for God knows how long. And so in a way, we can't move, we're sitting.
Right.
But we can, let's just try a hand dance. Just explore, research all the ways, and if your fingers are kind of stuck, just loosen them up.
We're all taking an art break. Anybody can do
Arms and
I gotta get up, ladies.
are stuck. And even in a limited space, even with limited movement, there's a whole lot you can do, or communicate with somebody else. So Lisa, I'm gonna do a little hand dance with you on this screen. And there's all kinds of like outside,
I'm gonna try to like
Sharon was saying, we can connect all kinds of ways, and somebody else.
Trying to find your rhythm.
Yes, and see if you can tell just who you're connecting to just by the responses to you. So already now just close your eyes for a second. And does your body feel any different? Just in a tiny little bit of movement.
Yeah.
Because we do what is called functional movement all the time. We're writing, we're task-oriented. Movement is functional. This is expressive movement. And we tend not to do it unless given permission or instruction to do it. And it takes us outside the boxes and really opens up everything. And I find actually a little movement before drawing helps me paint or draw much better.
Yeah, I turn on music all the time. You know, I'll listen to certain things like Kelly Clarkson's Stronger, you know, before I get going. And being in the children's world right now, a lot of trolls and a lot of the movies Sing, you know, all the dance moves, and you're getting up and you're doing them. And I usually try and start those kind of movements and stuff before I sit down to do work as well. But going back to your question, now I forgot which question we were talking about.
How to communicate. The
value. I don't know. I talk a lot about that, but I tell my story, you know, because I have a very personal story. So I talk about the value of journaling, of scribbles and doodles, of all these pieces, gratitude, all these different ways. And I try and give people permission to find their own, you know, their own piece of what would resonate with your heart. Yes, try and step out of the box a little, even if it's just getting a coloring book. I always tell all my clients, I've always said, Get a coloring book and crayons or colored pencils and leave it at your desk. Take a 5-minute break in the afternoon and, you know, do that. I mean,
hey. Sorry.
A lot of the communication, I think, can come from organizers of networking groups, whether it's like the Chamber of Commerce or whatever, and also the corporate world for these ice breaking.
It changes all your energy and your.
Is there a delay?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. Keep going, Lisa.
Oh, I'm sorry. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of work that can be done, and maybe it takes the artists going into the corporate community, going into communities that aren't typically filled with people who are already doing art, who are already creative, who already get it. But those team building exercises at large corporate retreats, and the icebreaker exercises at networking events, and it's connecting with all the organizations that have social and business gatherings and creating, just like you did, the hand dance, you know, but creating an opportunity for a 5-minute break to do something intentional that loosens you up. And many times those are not necessarily artistic in nature, those kinds of team building exercises and art icebreaker. But I think that if the word got out to more the non-arts community to take advantage of those things. I worked for a company where we had on every other Friday, there was like a maker day in the conference room. Now, again, it was in the industry, the craft industry, but it was an intentional thing for the employees to have this outlet. Like some corporate offices have yoga rooms, right? Or meditation rooms for that intentional purpose of take your break over here and do something creative and do something mindful. And I think that word has to get out to more business people and non-arts.
Well, I think we have to have a better conversation, the benefits about art, you know, and really hone in on those talking points, you know, for whatever audience we're in. Not only the schools, the education, for seniors, I'm in the senior world, you know, how dance and music and art keep my mind alive, you know, and they give me better focus, or I can have better balance, I walk better. But then in the corporate world, you've got to talk about that Adobe study that came out, you know, years ago just said, this is the skill. Creativity is a skill that we all need to meet all our challenges. And how do we pivot into that is having that creativity will do that. We're not telling, again, being an artist, but if you can take certain elements, you know, and allow play. I don't remember who said curiosity was a great word, you know, but play, curiosity, all these things. If we allow that to become the dialogue, I think that's how we change the corporate world.
And a lot of those talking points exist, and a lot of research mentioned earlier. Americans for the Arts is a great organization for research, and here in California we have the California Arts Council, and they're always putting together little blurbs and graphics that we can share that provide those talking points and kind of drive them home, and in a very palatable way. And it's just being aware of where those organizations are and then getting in.
Right. I mean, I have my list when I talk and stuff, but I think now we also have to talk about, in the time of COVID, it is different. Yeah. You know, we're asking people to pivot and change and transform within a very tight framework, very constrained. What does that look like? I know one of my kids' stepbrothers had a mattress factory here in Chicago, and he ended up making masks. I mean, he had all these people sewing machines, but nobody's buying mattresses, you know, and he figured out his partner became Hanes, who supplied the fabric and, you know, all those kinds of things. And I think we're going to be dealing with a lot of these right now in the constraints of how many people are sick, what we're asking of people, and the political climate. I think we have to be at the forefront of the conversations and offering opportunities to create new dialogues, co-create new ideas of what could be. People keep saying, I want to go back to what was. Well, no, I don't think we're ever going to go back to what was, because it wasn't the good old days, but what could we make better? And I think that's part of our responsibility as artists right now. Yeah.
But you, Sharon, do you have anything else you want to add?
Yes, I do. In thinking about how we can kind of promote the benefits of like taking art breaks, to kind of rein this back in, like thinking small, really what has helped in my like circles, my family, my friends is, you know, how do we make this manageable? Like, how do we, you know, rather than thinking, oh my gosh, big canvases or big art, you know, how do we provide opportunities for little simple things? And, you know, the number of people that I've literally taken them by the hand to the craft store and be like, here's a book, you know, here's a little paint set. It gets overwhelming. You think, oh, I'm going to be creative. And then you walk into the craft store and you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. And so to, you know, and I always have, as I said, my teeny little sketchbook, my teeny little watercolor pan, my little brush, and everyone's like, you know, I'm like, this is what I'm doing most of the time. Yeah, the stuff back here is fabulous, but this is really, I'm in the doctor's office. This is what I'm doing. I'm waiting to pick up my kid from school. This is what I'm doing, whether it's writing or actually painting or drawing. And, you know, how do you make this? You don't need chunks of time that like hours, you know, you might just need a minute here or there, and kind of normalizing that, that it's possible to fit in your already busy life. It can be fun, but also providing that real help. Like, these are like, here's some materials I know work for me. You can try them. And when I host little journal meetups, people get the courage to go to the store and be like, oh, look what I found. I want to try this out. Y'all want to try it out with me? And then we play with the gel pastels, and some of us love them, some of us don't. And we are all that more informed when we go back to the store to find something else. So that's just some personal examples of how do we help.
Who was it that said something about we want to curate resources? I mean, I love that idea of providing even more and more curated, because there's so much online there's so many people that are already doing all of this, and there's so many resources that are free. And I love the idea of identifying some really great places that are already, where it's already
exactly
curated for you, and then maybe identify some more.
Lisa, I want to invite you and anybody else, Lisa Fulmer, Lisa Rasmussen, will you be the conduit just to send them to Lisa? Lisa will send them to me.
Really? Yeah, I can do that.
We have two stages of our project. One is to curate and gather. The other is disseminate. So we're hopefully learning more about social media, the kinds of things, you know, to get it out to not just therapist hotlines and things like that, but although we do use hotlines, which was, you know, which reaches a lot of people, but we really do want to, once we've got we've got some wonderful resources, would love to have more. And I'm amazed at what's showing up just online all the time. But now we're trying to focus more on the dissemination part of it and make them available. So,
what I'm hearing is that, like, that sort of a theme going on in this conversation is that this starting point, it's a starting point for, and then a lot of things.
Yes.
In order to get people to start, right? Sharon was talking about this. Sometimes you have to get pragmatic, and you have to get, it's like handing it to people. I mean, Lisa, that's why I created Art is Moving, because we literally would like put it in public and people just couldn't pass it up, right? That's how we decided to do the first Art Break Days, because we were trying to reach people who wouldn't be on this conversation right now, who would try to walk by and say, oh, no, thanks, I don't have time. And then we give them well, this is a no judgment zone. It's a process, not the product. You have 5 minutes, right? And then they sit down and they grab a simple marker and a simple piece of paper, because you keep it simple to start, and they give it a try. So that's what I'm hearing, and I like that. And it's almost it's back to that ripple effect that, you know, Sharon, if you talk to one friend and then maybe they talk to one friend, I mean, and that's how movements get started. And so, and that's expand, and maybe keep it simple for people and not overwhelming, because I do think that the idea of art is overwhelming. I keep thinking of someone who commented to my friend, when I think of an art break, it stresses me out. I have an anxiety attack, that person said. And my friend said, how would you respond to that person? And my response is, you're taking the wrong art break. You don't have to draw. You don't have to paint. You can take a walk in the woods. If that's what you want to do. You could go for a drive and play some music and sing at the top of your lungs. That would be an art break. And so to me, I think that maybe we're not reaching enough people to communicate that idea, that notion that having art in your life on a daily basis, number one, is probably already happening. You're just not recognizing it. Right. And number two, it's a lot easier to get started than you think.
And along with that, Lauren, I would just add, we've, in the Dance Therapy Association, have had struggles for years over the word dance. Right. Right away, as soon as people hear that, they're out of the room. You know, I can't dance.
No, I took dance therapy for 2 years, so not me.
But eventually, it's called dance movement therapy, because the word movement is a little more neutral. It tends to not scare people as much. And everything's movement, walking in the woods, sitting in the computer doing a hand dance, and you don't have to be technically proficient. So I absolutely agree with you. A lot of the words we use, we've had, and we work with people who've had traumatic experiences with an art teacher in 3rd grade, and as soon as they hear the word art or draw, they're out of the room also. So dance, art. I don't know that we can invent new words. Sometimes creativity is better, but then again, people say, oh, I can't be creative, and they have, you know, resistance to that word also. But just to be careful of the words we use, yes, and just to say to make something or to go for a walk is, I absolutely agree. Keep it very simple. Keep it very localized. Right here and now. Can you do something? Can you do one thing?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think part of the conversation then becomes about what is self-care and why do people think it's selfish?
Right.
You know, if we can start addressing that, then we can open up the whole conversation and give people options. It's like, you know, we're not telling you got to get a massage, a manicure, a pedi, which is the first thing many women think about. You know, it's like you can take 5 minutes and go in the bathroom and just do some deep breathing. You know, who said it has to be anything major? You know, and that self-care can include so much of the arts. You know, and that kind of thing. So I think that's a big piece of this.
Yeah.
I got to tell Eileen just one funny story, because you know you were doing hand dancing, just because I have a program I've done for years called Chocolate Creativity and Connections, okay? And I've done it for older women's groups, and they are not going to get up and dance, but we do finger dancing. So,
So where's the chocolate, Ray?
Oh, well, I've done it 2 ways. I brought a chocolatier in to talk about chocolate, but I use it as a metaphor for passion. And so you get people talking and you know, thinking about the very first time that chocolate was introduced. What was it? Cooking your grandmother's house, you know, her baking. Was it Valentine's Day that you remember getting that sweet? And so all of a sudden it becomes about love and passion and joy. And that's the space you want to create from, if you can. So.
After I do a group, Ghirardelli makes these little single wrapped bars.
Okay.
And I bring a big bag of it and I give everybody, we do a little closing ritual. Everybody gets a little bit of
Okay, well, I do it in the beginning instead. They get their chocolate.
Do we all have chocolate? Let's grab our chocolate.
Must be close to dinner time. I think we're all getting hungry.
I know. It's been an amazing conversation.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. That was awesome.
Yeah, and let's just kind of close with any final words that you have. Maybe, you know, what does art mean to you right now after this conversation? Or
I actually would be curious, Lisa, if we can access each other's emails or contact information. And I don't know about the people who will be.
Everybody's cool with that. I can totally share. If you want.
It'd be very nice to meet you all.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful.
If we're all on Facebook or Instagram, we can tag you. You can tag us all there or send an email.
Yeah, I'll start with the email and then we'll go into the social media. Yeah, I think
and I also have a group called the Creative Activist.
Yep.
So Lisa's a member of that, aren't you, Lisa? Yeah.
I am.
And stuff. So it's a great way to start meeting some other people who consider themselves creative, and in all different formats, you know, whether it's drama, music, dance, you know, authors of different things, you know, health, you know. So you can come on there and try and because I think a big part of this is the connections, which you're doing today, the collaboration, and where can we go together on this? So I'd love for you all to, you know, come be part of it, and we can have further conversations.
Love it.
We're on the artist trading card swap every month. So if anybody wants to do artist trading cards, to Sharon's point earlier, you know, it's so important to gather some people together and just start creating together and sharing and shopping and whatever, you know, whatever it takes to keep that alive and then maybe they'll go out and, you know, bring somebody in. And keep, you know, you just have to keep things alive on a really small scale, and then gradually it can grow into bigger things. But yeah, I love the opportunity to connect with new people for, you know, so.
Another thing that I've been doing, and if anybody's interested, you all live on different parts of the coast, so I'm not sure the time would work, but on Friday afternoons, I just have like a 40-minute art versations is what we're calling them. Originally, it was if you're doing work, you know, we gave an assignment to each other each week, but then people just started dropping out because they felt the pressure of, I can't produce. So now we just talk. And if you've done something that week you want to share, you can share it. If not, you know, we talk about, you know, how can we get our work out there today? What are some of the challenges we're facing? So again, if anybody's interested, let me know and I'll put you on the mailing list.
I love it. And this is our first virtual Art Break Day, and Lauren and I were chatting in between sessions and really thinking that we're going to go forward with having these calls or these Zoom sessions, like maybe every 2 weeks, where we can hop on and check in or communicate or, you know, kind of become a real force because right now we need to be a force.
Just kind of keeping the conversation going and moving forward to really figure out how to, because Lisa and I are constantly like, okay, so we reached this audience, you know, and so, but we know there are people that we're not reaching and that are still apprehensive to sort of give an art break a try. And so, you know, we're just constantly thinking creatively, right? And the COVID has really forced us to change course, you know, and so, you know, we'll find a new way to get where we need to go.
Anyway, you know, the little things I've loved, at least in my neighborhood, you know, kids are painting rocks and putting them under trees. I don't know about your neighborhoods and stuff, but just seeing those little things. And my granddaughter here, she and her parents made a little vignette in their living room window every night with their stuffed animals for like a month. Every night they'd change it, you know. So there were so many creative ideas coming out of this. I wish we could, you know,